You would think that it is. However, there's quite a bit of debate right now in the accounting industry when it relates to cannabis with this exact question. I'm part of a few different networking groups that are solely accountants for cannabis companies. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth in those communities and discussion regarding whether 280E, if it went away, if the administration legalized cannabis or took it off of Schedule 1, what would happen? And it could go either way right now. The debate is it can make the accountant's life much easier. That's what a lot of the inexperienced accountants are saying right now, it seems. Whereas the accountants that have been in this industry for a while have gone through the same thing that happened with hemp a few years ago are saying that it actually will make lives more difficult because when hemp became declassified a while back, the accounting became more complicated.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the floor of the CWCB Expo in the Javits Center in New York City. That's in New York, just in case you didn't know. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, and we're so happy, and I'll admit, somewhat amazed that we're actually able to get this done today so that we could go live from the floor of this trade show. And I've got a few guests lined up. I actually thought I would have some interviews lined up too, but in the meantime, I have some people I could talk to. This has over 300 exhibitors at it. It's the oldest trade show in the cannabis space in New York City. And I believe it all started in 2015. And if anybody watches the show on CNBC, I think it's called Fun Money or something like that. It's hosted by a guy named Tim Seymour, who I met earlier, who is pro cannabis, and he has been in the media world for years. So this is why having cannabis for sale in New York City and in New York State is so exciting for the industry, because it's going to give a huge population an opportunity to flourish. Because in the city alone, and I know my man, my CPA and my CFO, Rick Lanive, always tells me this, in the city of New York, it is the largest legacy cannabis market in the world. Am I right? More people do cannabis in New York City than any other place in the world. In the country. Oh, not the world?
Any other country in the world.
Oh, and including, well, that would be the entire world. Okay, so there you go. And that's why this is a very exciting time. And more importantly, there's plenty of people, plenty of entrepreneurs out there who are creating new things, new opportunities. It's giving those that have been most impacted by the failed war on drugs an opportunity to get into this business alone. In fact, they go to the head of the line when it comes to license distribution in New York. Now, many states, now that there are 23 states, yes, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, he signed that this week. And that was going to be our lead story. There's now 23 legal cannabis states for adult use sale and consumption in the United States of America. You add in the other medical decriminalized states that are out there that have medical programs, that's up to 40 now. Now, the last time I checked, there's only 50 states in the United States of America. So, you know, that means only 10 states are holding out for illegality. At some point, those that are in DC will figure this out and figure out a way, to tax the industry properly, not put them out of business, give them an opportunity to act like any other business, i.e., you'll be able to write off 280E and do banking. Okay, those are the things that need to change, as well as taking it off that Schedule 1 designation from the Controlled Substances Act. It just has to happen at some point. It certainly isn't going to happen fast enough for the industry, and it's certainly not going to be happy enough to help us out. But we think we're going to watch the end of prohibition in our time happen of cannabis. And that's why I started this company in the first place, way back when, is to document the end of prohibition in the United States. And of course, now we have a European reporter, we have a Canadian reporter, and this is usually the time when we get our correspondents to call in their weekly reports, and they share them with us. And then my man Dan, back in master control, he puts them all together and creates the We Talk News show that we live stream at 6 o'clock every Friday after our 4 o'clock really live Business of Cannabis talk show. So that's my opening monologue. No, it wasn't funny. I don't care. Okay. I'm just happy that you can see me, hear me, and we're live on our own channels and network. And now I'm going to introduce you to a guy who I'm sitting next to. I know you can't see him, but I think you might be able to, because we got that hooked up too. Please. And his name is Joshua Rubin, and he's with a company called Doobie. Doobie, that's right. Now, the question I have right off the bat is, Josh, how do you spell Doobie?
Doobie.
Doobie. Kind of like the Doobie Brothers.
Just like the Doobie Brothers. We didn't take it from them, obviously, being in cannabis. We're more going after Doobie the Blunt or Doobie the Joint. But yes, they seem to share a name with us.
There you go. That's Josh Rubin. He's with Doobie. And we're going to talk to him for a few minutes here, because I really am interested in, this is a delivery service in New York City, correct? How are you guys licensed, operational, the whole 9 yards?
It's a great question. So Doobie as a company actually comes in, and we partnered with a single dispensary that's here in New York called Union Square Travel Agency. So actually all of their employees, et cetera, are actually performing the deliveries, and we are working hand in hand with them to bring the Union Square Travel Agency experience straight to people's door. So we come in having the delivery background, operational expertise that we've had so far in some of our other markets, and we've been able to come in and bring that here to New York City. Found an amazing dispensary partner that we could operate with, and we help make this thing go live and actually help, I guess, the proliferation of legal cannabis in the state of New York, which is, I think, what it's all about right now, which is really cool.
There aren't a lot of dispensaries that are open in the state of New York, let alone the city of New York right now. Of course, we can talk about the legacies pop-ups that happen, but that has calmed down a little bit now. It's the rollout of the legal market that's happening, and Doobie's part of that now with the how did you guys come up? How did they come up with the travel agency and cannabis dispensary? I'm still trying to figure that one out. Although I do know that Stu Jacobs involved with this, so that kind of explains some things to me. Just because he's a very good friend of Pro Cannabis Media, he was the first podcast interview that I did in 2018.
Oh my God! I mean, I imagine that Stu probably had an iota of influence over the name, but my understanding, and at least I know what they're trying to help people do, is they want the product to be able to take people to places that they wouldn't otherwise normally go. So instead of buying a ticket to Hawaii or to one of these other wonderful places that you can physically travel to, let the product that you come in and purchase at the store take you to your own wonderful place, however you choose to use it, whether it's for medical purposes or only for recreational purposes, but let the product take you to a whole nother place without having to buy a ticket to anywhere.
Yeah. Well, I've been going to that place for a long time, Josh. The people who watch
you have.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens to get older. You have a lot of experience and stories to tell people.
We sure do.
How challenging. Now, were you guys, is there a social equity play here with you guys at all?
With us in our other markets, there most certainly is. And here, because we are a strict partnership with just one dispensary, which is Union Square Travel Agency, we're in partnership with them and the foundation that they work with, which is the Doe Fund. So we're underneath that umbrella with them. All of the work that we do also goes hand in hand with the Doe Fund, et cetera. So it is strictly with that. In our other markets in Massachusetts and Missouri, there is a social equity component to that as well. But here it's with the Doe Fund.
The Doe Fund, DOE Fund?
That's correct, DOE Fund.
And it's Jane Doe, obviously. Okay, I got it. The Doe Fund. I wanted to ask, what does that foundation support? That's where I was going with that question. The Doe Foundation, what are they about? What did they support?
I mean, the foundation really, for us, when we came in and started working with Union Square, the Doe Fund, and at least the way that we've understood working with them, is all about moving out of this black market era and pushing cannabis into the forefront of the real life or the legal era.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, that was what was most inspiring.
So I'm going to give a shameless plug. I'm really good at that. I'm teaching a course starting June 6th. If somebody would
Where?
please sign up. Hang on a second. Stockton University, their continuing adult ed program has for whatever reason, brought me in to teach getting to normalization, fighting the stigma through public relations.
So important.
Well, sign up for the damn course.
Sorry, so you're saying that nobody signed up for your class yet?
We just announced it last week. And
Sure that's the reason?
no, I'm not sure. I have no idea why people don't sign up for things.
Are you sure that's the reason?
No, I've probably found out about who I am and they don't want to. Now, please keep in mind, this is remote. Okay. So it's not like,
Remote learning?
yeah, I'm not exactly in the classroom. I have been in the classroom in Boston at a variety of colleges there. I teach multimedia journalism. I teach introduction to sportscasting on TV and radio. I teach the impact of social media on society, which was a graduate school course,
Okay.
which I really enjoyed teaching and I learned quite a bit. And don't get me started on social media, please. Okay. We're taking advantage of it now because we know how to. Let me rephrase that. Dan knows how to.
Dan
All right.
knows how to.
Thank God he does, and other people as well. But definitely Dan French back there. Joshua, when you come to a place like this, the Javits Center,
They call me Joe.
what was I calling you, Joshua?
You were the whole time, but call me Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joe would work because that's
Joe
your
is
name.
perfect. It is my name.
And you could have corrected me.
Short for Joshua.
If I don't write stuff down as you get older, you can't help it. So
I know.
Joseph is short for Joshua. Nice bailout. Actually, I appreciate that.
Bailed you out.
Yes, you
I
did.
bailed you out.
Yes.
Joe works.
I got it. Joe works. I screwed it up. What a shock, right? At least we all know he could laugh at me and at my foibles and my embarrassing moments. When you come to a show like this at the Javits,
Yeah.
and it's a weed trade show, and it's one of the oldest, I might add, right in the country, and the oldest certainly in New York, 2015. Do you pinch yourself? Do you say, is this really happening in the United States? Is it really legal to actually consume cannabis on the streets of New York?
I mean, anybody who comes to a trade show like this, especially one in New York, should be so impressed and excited that we're moving out of this stigmatized era, exactly what was happening back in the 20s with alcohol. I mean, this is mind blowing to see the amount of vendors that are here that are setting up shop. Obviously, you see a lot of familiar and friendly faces that are coming in from some other markets and some other trade shows that have been happening in other states. But it really is a pinch yourself, oh my God, what is happening moment, because all New Yorkers can now go out onto the street, anywhere you can smoke a cigarette, you can smoke a joint, a blunt, a doobie, if I might add. But we are here. Cannabis is legal. You can go in and purchase now. I mean, this should be amazing for anybody who wants to get into any area of the industry, because here, setting up shop, you don't just have retailers. You have cultivators, manufacturers, producers. You can do anything, right? If you want to get into the cannabis industry, if you're a retailer, a consumer, just an investor, someone who just is curious, you can come in and learn all about the industry at these trade shows, or just by walking around New York City, because everybody's smoking out on the streets, whether they're getting it right now from the legacy markets or, a licensed retailer. But it truly is an amazing pinch yourself moment.
Okay, so I can tell you, I was, I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
No. I
almost knocked us all
I
down.
bumped the table, whatever. I walked on the streets of New York last night, hoping to smell it, hoping to find somebody out there imbibing and getting enlightened. Okay.
All right.
And I was a little disappointed. Now, granted, I was only on the street for 10 minutes. Okay. So I didn't really give it a really good college try, as they say. Do you know the history, by the way, of how the cannabis product became prohibited?
Here in New York?
1937.
Okay, it was a little, I don't know if you were around in that time zone era, not to throw some jabs, but no, I am not as familiar in 1937.
Yes.
So you're going to tell the class?
Yes.
Okay, please.
Okay. So,
All ears.
so the United States of America at that time, right after the Great Depression,
Okay.
was really controlled by a group of white men with a lot of money that dictated a lot of industry. Took us down a few paths as you look back, and I'm not. Should I name names? I could name names, and I will in the class, just for the record. Okay. But my point is they wanted to maintain the South as a segregated territory.
Sure.
They did not want the Mexican Americans or the Black Americans at that time to have any shot at getting out of what they had created.
Okay.
Okay. At that time, they created the Jim Crow South. It was segregated. There were, all sorts of different rules out there. I mean, look, it took our nation 166 years to recognize that slavery was a bad thing. Okay. And by the way, it's the only thing that the Republicans and the Democrats actually agreed on and passed it unanimously. Crazy. That's crazy. It is. So I can get into the details, but I'm going to make it a tease. If you really do want to find out, by the way, how I found out, there's a thing called Google. Have you heard of Google?
I've heard of Google.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, you can Google anything.
You can.
Right. Right. So anyway, the point is, you could find out there, but it had a lot to do with a guy by the name of Harry Anslinger. He was the first head of the Narcotics Federal. It was like the DEA, but it was called the Narcotics and Federal Narcotics Bureau. Thank you. I got it. Thank you very much over there. By the way, there's nobody over there. My brain.
No, I
goes
see
someplace.
them.
Oh, of course. So they're helping me out. All right. I appreciate that too. All right. So that's really how it all kind of started. Now, it never, ever got prohibited. It was a tax. So, for instance, if you went into the store, the Union Square Travel Agency, did I get it right?
Yeah.
But thank God I've heard it 5 times. Stu would kill me now if he didn't, right?
He would kill you.
Yeah, I know that. I know, but at least I got it done. And more importantly, you're here, and he's happy you're here, as am I. So if you're selling a pre-roll, they go for between, if they're on special, maybe $15 to maybe $25. Is that accurate average price of a pre-roll? What's the average price of the pre-roll in the Union? Do you know by any chance?
I do. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, right now you can get a pre-roll at Union Square for as little as $7 to $8. So it goes as low as that. They can go as high as $20, $25. Then when you start getting into the pre-roll packs, that's when the prices start escalating. But very fairly priced, same pricing on the delivery website as well.
So would you pay $307 for that $7 joint as a pre-roll? In other words, that's what they did, is they taxed it so that you couldn't buy it.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't. A little bit out of my price range if I'm looking for some flower or a doobie to smoke. But yeah, a little bit out of my price range.
So that was the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937. And Harry Anslinger was a racist and someone who was funded by that group of people that had the money, that survived the Depression, that controlled the industry, that controlled our government, I'm not going to say anything political about today. But, there are haves and have-nots now. Let's just leave it at that. And it's become more divisive than any other time in my lifetime. Now, I don't know how old you are. I know you're younger than me. That's for sure. But have you ever seen in your lifetime a country as divided as we are right now?
Never. And I've only been through, like you just said, so many election cycles, definitely not as many as you have seen, but it has never been like this. And of course, they don't teach about Anslinger in U.S. history when you are in high school or you're in a history course in college. They're not teaching any of that. So you have to show up to your class,
right? So
you can give us the deets.
Right. More importantly, the deets. I guarantee an hour and a half of entertainment every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And you'll learn something. That's a beautiful thing. I love teaching. And this is one of the reasons why I started Pro Cannabis Media, was to educate the public about this plant and treat it like a plant medicine, not as a drug. And that's why I really believe in getting to normalization, not necessarily legalization.
Love that. And that's the way it should be treated.
Right. Well, that's right. I am a guy who likes to respect all people and all things, and find good in all people and develop a relationship around that. That's who I am, Joe. Who are you, Joe? I know you're not Joshua.
I'm definitely not Joshua. I'm just happy to be here. And I think I'm the new.
I know a Josh, Rubin. That's why.
I think I'm the new student in your class, or maybe I'll be there teaching side by side. We'll be giving something out. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it's great.
I love being visible now. I didn't used to like being a public figure when I was a sportscaster.
Get everybody coming by.
Right, but I mean, and people know who I am, and of course they see me doing my thing, right? So they're waving to me and hey, hey, hey. And most of the people I've interviewed, over 400 interviews in about 3 years.
Now 401.
Yep, absolutely.
Now 401.
But 401, absolutely. And it was Joe.
Joe.
I got you. All right. So we've covered all that.
Yeah.
Doobie is a delivery service.
That's right.
And with Dr. Mary Clifton's here, I have to give her a quick shout out. Don't go away. We want to talk to you.
away,
All
Mary.
right, great. All right. I'm going to wrap this up.
Let's do it.
All right. And then I'm going to get Dr. Mary on. Is that okay?
Of course it is.
All right. And I'll get into some more stuff. But anyway, Joe Rubin,
Absolute
sorry I
pleasure.
butchered your name. Welcome to the
I
world
might
of,
forgive you.
I
I don't
appreciate
know.
that. Please
It's a
do.
pleasure. Thank you.
You bet.
Pleasure.
All right. Hey, this is great. This is what I mean. That was perfectly timed. Dr. Mary. Please do. Thank you very much.
How are you?
Thank you. Good. How are you? Hey, we'll give a hug.
Absolutely.
Lovely.
How are you? How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine enough. So we're live.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. We wanted to do this. We weren't sure we were going to. It's been a bit of an adventure, like everything we do anyway, because, we're first timers on the 24/7 live streaming news, talk, and information. So we do something new every day.
All
but
cannabis all the time.
all cannabis all the time and no psilocybin, which is going to be my first question to Dr. Miller.
Oh,
As you know, because I know you're an active advocate and you're a doctor and
Yes.
people come to you with all sorts of issues and stuff, and people respect your program. They've known you for a while. Do you think that the cannabis community should be getting involved with the psilocybin community? I get it. Both are plant medicines. However, in my estimation, it's perfect fodder for the gateway theory. Oh, sure. Oh, wait, we're going to do this. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
this is live. Hey. Oh, God. She has a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I love that.
There we go.
All right. Never met a camera I didn't like.
I just came back a
Go ahead.
couple of weeks
Go ahead.
ago
You got it.
from.
This is a directional
Oh,
mic. It's not a very sturdy cam. Hang
I
on.
just came back a couple of weeks ago from Annapolis from the Capital Psilocybin Coalition,
Yeah.
working
perfect.
on that. Yeah,
Okay.
we're doing great work down there. They're a super democratic majority, and they're planning on creating a very high level of access and education early and making psilocybin available. There's a lot of people who want to put it behind a paywall
Mhm.
and make it difficult to get, and that's the opposite of what Maryland wants to do. So I'm excited to work with them. It's a great product.
Any credence to my theory that it fuels the opposition to say, oh, sure, the cannabis community, they don't believe the gateway theory exists, but now what do you think's happening? Now they're getting into psilocybin, a psychedelic. Now, I mean, I get it. I don't want to give the prohibitionists any more fodder that they have. So
I'm just working from the point of view of a physician, and cannabis works really well for PTSD, for chronic pain, maybe not as well for treatment-resistant depression. And psilocybin has a very good position for treatment-resistant depression. It's a different medicine.
and again, I understand that and I support that and I see the value in that. I just don't want to mix the message.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think that psychedelics and cannabis both have great value, and NMDA is going to come out before psilocybin. We expect that one next summer, psilocybin, summer 2025. There's a lot of great psychedelics coming down the chute that I think it would be good to embrace.
We're all going to be walking around with an altered state of consciousness, which I learned at my freshman year at Tufts University back in 1975. Dr. Mary is someone who's plugged into the medical community, and now you're seeing our 23rd state go legal this week, Minnesota. Minnesota. Okay. So, are you starting to see more acceptance amongst the medical community. I'm not going to talk about the public yet. I want to know about the medical community, because you're tied into that. You're on a bunch of boards and you go to all these meetings and you're a speaker and everything. Is the medical community starting to understand that, you know what, this was improperly scheduled in 1971, right? And it was improperly banned in 1937. And there is definitely medicinal elements to both plant medicines, right?
Oh yeah, you don't have to be a doctor for very long before you meet a patient who's getting benefit from their anxiety or their sleep or their PTSD or their pain or their cancer, end of life, from cannabis. And I mean, the pharmaceutical companies are of course down on cannabis because it sells less pharmaceuticals. But if you're a doctor taking care of patients, it would be very hard to do this job and not hear about the benefits of cannabis to the point that you would start to want to investigate and be a little suspicious about it being, a bad product.
Right. I get it. Lord knows we're both enlightened on it, but so are they teaching anything about cannabis science now in med schools? I'm involved with Stockton University. I'm teaching in a continuing ed. Of course, they have a certificate program there, and I'm teaching getting to normalization through fighting the stigma through public relations. But I just would like to know what the community, I mean, the whole, are they embracing the fact that this is going to be here? We need to learn about the chemistry and the science behind it so that we as physicians might be one day writing prescriptions for cannabis like they used to do in 1900 and 1910 when they wrote 5 million prescriptions for cannabis.
Yeah, the answer to that question is no. Nobody's teaching the medical community anything about this other than, the groups within the medical community. Like myself, I have a lot of doctors in my community that follow me for my education on TikTok. And so I think that we have to start with education and we have to keep the access very open. And if we focus on education and access, we know that strong medical and recreational cannabis programs build strong communities. There's fewer people that die from opioid use. There's fewer teenagers using in legal recreational states. There was a new study out of Iowa that just showed that the insurance rates for car insurance go down because there's fewer DUIs, because people aren't as dangerous to drive on cannabis as they are when they're using alcohol. There's less tobacco use, there's less alcohol use. I mean, there's really, by any measure, it's very valuable and important to your community to expand these programs. And it all starts with a strong medical program.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm fascinated by the industry. There's so many different elements to it. By the way, the Dr. Mary show is still available on demand on our channel. I just want everybody to understand that you could go and listen to her, watch her as much as you want on procannabismedia.com and our Roku channel and all that neat stuff. And one of these days we're going to get you back on because things are happening, let's just say. And let's just leave it at that for this discussion. But let's go back to DUI. Operating under the influence of cannabis continues to be a challenge for the community and the law enforcement and the legislature, everybody who wants it to be safe. We preach responsible use here. So I want it to be safe too. Yes. However, it is difficult to measure impairment, not necessarily it's in your system, but is it still enough in your system to be impairing your driving? That's the big question.
Well, I do think it's very interesting that even with all the work we've done, we are still not able to figure out a way to measure impairment. And there's been a number of studies published looking at that. But what is more interesting to me are the small number of studies that actually get people high and put them on a driving test and really find that not a lot of impairment exists, especially if you are a habitual user. You're not going to see a significant decline in driving capacity. So when we're working on establishing clear boundaries for cannabis use and driving, I mean, that's where we need to start. Is it in fact dangerous? And the study that we're missing is 2,000 people who smoke and then get behind a driver simulation, and we can see how well they drive before and after, because we may find that we're just barking up the wrong tree. But I think we have to also worry that the the law enforcement is just looking to retain profitability. And if they're not pulling over as many DUIs, if they're not busting as many people because they have 2 joints in their pocket when they pull them over for a DUI, they've got to figure out how to identify impaired cannabis drivers. Either that, or they're going to have to go out and actually solve some real crimes. And that's more complicated. And not as immediately revenue generating. So it's more of a problem of revenue for law enforcement than it is an actual safety concern.
We have talked ad nauseum about prison reform in this country,
Oh.
and it's one of those things that's out there that's on. We should all look at privately run prison system to punish offenders. Punishment. I don't think punishment works real well. Has anybody tried to use timeout, by the way? It just doesn't work. You got to talk to kids. You got to educate them. You can actually explain to kids what is right and what is wrong. You really can do that. Okay. So, but back to law enforcement and DUI and all this stuff. I know they're looking. I think there's a huge difference between operating under the influence of cannabis through depending on how you titrate, how you get it into your system.
Right.
Because if you smoke it, it's a head high, if you will. And if you eat it, it's a full body high. Now, and I'll be honest, there's the only time that I never got behind the wheel of a car because I was too inebriated was from an edible.
Well, I mean, I certainly think you can get too high to drive, but you can also get sedation from taking sedating antidepressants, from sleeping pills, from certain anti-anxiety medications. So you're really not, cannabis doesn't have the corner on the market in being a medication that can induce some a distractible level of fatigue. And I'm not sure that the administration or the quantity, I mean, that's going to be just very user dependent. And we probably should test all those things, but because we first just have to prove that we have a problem in the first place. We have to prove that we have a problem in the first place with people driving while under the influence.
Well, there's no doubt. And by the way, I know a lot of drivers who don't drive under the influence who are horrible drivers. I'm from the Boston area. Oh, great. Mary's volunteering for that one. Dr. Mary's volunteering. But then there's the other side of the coin, those who perhaps partake in the 70s like I did. And then when the driver's test came up, I still had it in my system, people. Okay. And I did my 3-point turn around the corner, came back, did my parallel park. I passed under the influence.
Well, for a lot of people, if you're treating muscle spasm or pain or ADHD, you're actually going to have a more functional physical body and a more functional mental state to drive when you're using your medication. And the best proof of that really is the Epidiolex data on multiple sclerosis. They have 10,000 patient years of people that have been using cannabis medicinally for their multiple sclerosis. And they've been monitoring the number of traffic tickets, the number of accidents, and there is literally no difference between the people who before they were on Epidiolex and after. There's not even an increased risk of traffic tickets. We are just good citizens that are driving safely while we're taking our medicine.
Right. And there's so many medicinal plays on this plant. There's so many uses of it. Yeah. And again, we got a little bit into the prison thing. We talked a little bit about that. It's difficult to discern who is under the influence and who is not. Are they impaired? Are they not impaired? I'm not quite sure there's an answer that's going to make everybody happy about this.
No, I don't think there is an answer. And I mean, I have to just go back to, if it's this difficult to identify the impairment, then does the impairment really exist? We need to refocus our studies, not looking for the best way to identify impairment, but the best way to determine if we really even need to. And then we could always redirect our police to other tasks than pulling over cannabis drivers.
and maybe start educating those that need it the most. And I think the public needs it the most, certainly. But if you do something wrong against the law, there should be consequences. I get that. Does it need to be jail? No, I really do, especially for drug crimes, nonviolent drug crimes. You know, this is the whole Last Prisoner Project. This is what Steve's trying to do, is to get every single person who's been convicted of a cannabis crime out of jail. And the fact that they're still in jail is scary to me.
Yeah.
You know, very scary to me. But they're there, and I would. Can you imagine what's going through their minds every day when they read the newspaper or get online and they see the CWCB Expo, whatever, here at the Javits is going on, and they're like, man, I'll never get out of it, right? It's like for the same thing, you know, it's like this is a legal substance now.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be just terrible. I have to agree with you to be stuck in jail for something that that is now becoming so legal, but it's a huge revenue generator. And the private prisons are a huge flaw in our country. The whole criminal system and the way that it is fed by these traffic stops is being turned on its head, and that's just going to be a very difficult growth experience for for the legal system and for the private prison system. All of that's powered by cannabis. Cannabis has facilitated all of those, 3 strikes and you're out, really extended prison sentences for people, and probably crack cocaine too, but probably more cannabis. And those poor people are paying that price for a very long time,
Let them out. Let them out. Give them workforce development. Give them an opportunity to get into this industry. That's what social equity applicants is all about. And we're starting to see some of that happening in the New York area. Now that this is in your backyard, Mary, what's changed in your life?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I stay pretty close to home and I work pretty hard on my cannabis card company. I've been writing cards in Iowa, but in the last couple of months, I've added Georgia and Texas and Vermont, and I'm adding Michigan and I think Illinois soon. So we're and Louisiana. So I'm building a nice card company. So if you need, and then I'm focused on access. So getting a medicinal card from my company is $100 in every state. And we just make sure that it's reasonably priced. It'll cover our malpractice. It allows me to pay the physician, but it isn't any kind of gouge to the patient. And people can get their card and get access and get started on medicine.
You mentioned malpractice. The insurance cost for malpractice is absolutely stunning. Am I overreacting, Mary?
My insurance costs for running this portion of my cannabis endeavors is almost $9,000 a year for just the insurance before I pay for any access to any computer systems or any type of telephone systems or anything. That the insurance industry is also out of control, also so wildly out of control.
And I actually have some interesting news that I'm going to spill at some point, not today. That's called a tease. But Dr. Mary, first of all, it was great to have you back. It meant so much to me. 3 months ago, you texted me just to check in. That was so nice. You have the sweet, nice gene that is so valuable for humans.
Yeah.
Some I'd like to inject with it, actually, which is another story. But do you need to plug anything? Is there anything? What's left? Where can they go to find you? All that neat stuff.
Yeah, my new website is Balanced Medicinals. Balanced Medicinals is where you can get a card, or you can just look me up. I'm on TikTok and easy to find there. And I agree with you. This community is really the most important part of why cannabis is here. I mean, alcohol and cocaine make you feel good, but they're an ego booster and you feel invincible and individual. But when you smoke or you use psilocybin, it's an ego destroyer, and you feel the community that exists around you. So it helps you to feel so much healthier and happier. And that's why people that smoke don't, eat as much food. They just have a happier general outlook. You see yourself as all fingers on one hand with everybody else, instead of sort of out here on your own with nobody and no one to support you. So yeah, keep smoking weed.
Titrate. We want the titration going. We don't care how it gets into your system. We just want you to try it. All right, Dr. Mary, always a pleasure. I'll get another hug. The best. The best. And you can watch her show on Pro Cannabis Media. Now, Dan is listening. Dan is watching. This is a live show, so I've got to have some. Mary, by the way, Dr. Mary says hi, Dan. Okay, and I'm going to take a break and allow you to do whatever you need to do in break, and then I've got another guest ready to go. Right? Am I right, guys? Because we've got the Matteo group ready to help us out. So we're going to go away for a little while, but we'll be back with more live from the CWCB Expo after this.
Hello everyone, I'm Lex Pelger from Whitewell Creation with this week's European Cannabis Report for Weed Talk News. This week in Europe, 2 steps forward and 1 step back. In Iceland, officials have proposed a 4-year medical cannabis pilot program. If approved, this would include the cultivation, production, and distribution of cannabis-based medicines. The Ministry of Health would work with the Ministry of Culture and Trade to distribute the licenses to companies for production. Currently, the only legal cannabis medicine in Iceland is Sativex, a 1-to-1 THC to CBD oral spray prescribed by neurologists. CBD oil is also sold there, provided it is THC-free. If this bill passes for the pilot program before the end of the year, the program will begin in January 2024. In Spain, the medical cannabis regulations nudge forward. The Minister of Health promised that he will present his report about using cannabis within the National Health Service before the end of May. The Congress had approved regulating medical cannabis in June of 2022 and had given the ministry 6 months to produce their report. However, the minister explained that additional time was needed to ensure the safety of patients during the creation of the report. As he said, it is not a matter of bad faith on the part of this ministry, but rather an excess of zeal. Once the regulations are put in place, medical cannabis products will be available from pharmacies with a prescription. Then, in Germany's state of North Rhine-Westphalia, the Minister of Health in Dusseldorf declared itself fundamentally opposed to the approval of model medical cannabis programs. The concerns include the dangers of cannabis-related brain damage in adults, as well as how these projects can be compatible with EU and international law. This comes on the heels of a similar statement out of Bavaria. However, some other cities within the North Rhine-Westphalia state, such as Cologne and Münster, have already expressed interest in becoming a model region for the medical cannabis programs. That's the European Cannabis Report for this week. For more on the science side, see my newsletter on Substack, Cannabinoids and the People. I'm Lex Pelger from Whitewell Creations, reporting for Weed Talk News.
Okay, we're back at the floor of the CWCB Expo here at the Javits Center in New York City. I'm Jimmy Young from Pro Cannabis Media. Happy to be talking to a lot of people who are walking by, recognizing different people. I'll be honest, people actually recognize me. Of course, I do have the lights and the sign of my company behind me, but that's another story. And we'll get to more people to talk to. But right now we have Trent Woloveck from Jushi, which is one of the publicly traded big behemoth cannabis companies that Trent, a lot of people, pointing the finger at you guys. And I believe, just so you know, we need the multi-state operators to get this industry properly represented in DC and in this country. So I really do recognize that. Hang on, I'm going to try and do this because it is a little. I got the squeak out, but this has to be.
Okay, you want me to hold on to this?
That'd
Okay.
be great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a natural when it comes to being in front of the mic, you know?
perfect. That
Yeah.
works for me. So tell us about how the MSOs are dealing with this, because you know what's going on.
Yeah. So, I think it's kind of a multifaceted piece for multi-state operators, but just the industry in general. Somebody that's been in the industry since 2009, coming out of Colorado on the regulated industry side. There's a lot of education that goes into helping people understand what cannabis is. It's no longer, the devil's lettuce or anything like that, but it's a big real business. It's a big real industry. When you're talking about $100+ billion of some product being consumed, that's been demonized over the last 50 years. That's a long
excuse me,
thing.
do the
Yep.
math. 1937, 2023. Come on.
Okay. Yeah. And I am a math guy, so my apologies.
You could probably come up with that.
Yeah. Yes,
87?
absolutely. Yep.
80, 85, whatever.
Yeah. A good mental math right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
But yeah, and so, you know, when you're talking about, you know, something that needs to be reclassified or redone in their minds, there takes a certain part of professionalism and a certain type of you know, oomph behind you, that, you know, a multi-state operator, a publicly traded company has, fully audited, all those fun things we go through as a publicly traded company. It brings some validity to you know, to that conversation. And so, you know, working at the state level, working at the local level, and then working at the federal level, I think there's some, you know, weight that comes along with you know, what we do as MSOs.
Right. And again, you know, I feel bad because I think some of the MSOs are already creating social equity programs inside their own multi-state operation, which is what we want. And, you know, it's so amazing to me. America is a capitalist society, free market, all this stuff. And everybody loves to, the green dictates a lot of things that happen in this world. Am I right?
Yeah, 100% the case.
Okay. So now, you know, you've got a huge industry that's all cash, and we haven't even talked about safe banking, but I'm going to ask you next about it. And I just think to me, it is unfair. I'm all about exposing injustice in this industry, and it's all around us.
Absolutely.
Getting to normalization is my mantra, not necessarily legalization, because I still maintain this is a plant medicine that needs to be used that way. You have to use it responsibly, and you have to learn about it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's, you know, kind of two dimensions to that question. So, you know, as far as, you know, MSOs and us getting negative connotation around us and getting head starts, that's just not the case. We can't grow a business big enough to swallow 100% of a market. That will never happen. A consumer will never let that happen. A patient will never let that happen. And so, you know, I've built out a $73 million facility in Virginia and my grower processor that will only service 10% of what that market will actually do. I have 6 stores. I can only ever have 6 stores. And so we need other partners to come along and build out a retail footprint. The biggest challenge for the industry right now is having enough retail storefronts to capture people and bring them into the regulated market instead of having them participate in the illicit market. And so, you know, being able to put people that have been negatively impacted by the war on drugs,
Failed war on drugs.
well, it's still happening, unfortunately.
true.
And so, you know, putting them in a position to succeed is something that's super important from my perspective. You know, I'm just, you know, a dumb kid from the Midwest, from Ohio. And, you know, I got into the industry when $10,000 bought you 4 stores and 2 grows. And so we're not talking about that industry anymore. We're talking about spending $100 million, building out a 125,000 square foot facility. And so you need real cannabis and real financial folks to go out and raise that kind of money. And then you can supplement retail, which is a business that you can make money in, easy to stand up, easy to learn, to be able to supplement that. And so you look at alcohol, there's craft alcohol out there, and it's actually doing quite well.
Yeah.
And so there was a Budweiser. I mean, there is a Budweiser. Now they're losing market share, but like that's a whole nother story.
No need to go
Yep.
there.
And so you're starting to see you know, that evolution happen in cannabis, but you need to play on both sides because that's just what is expected in the United States. That's how you continuously make incremental changes with changing a societal view. cannabis is a very complex business, an extremely complex business. And so when going through that, there's just certain type of people that can know and understand and convey that message. But at the same time, there's plenty of opportunity for somebody that wants to open up a store in the state of New York or in the state of Virginia, or, you know, name a state. There's opportunity for that. But at the same time, we've learned and understood so much over the last, 13 years myself, but Jushi the last 5 years, where it's our responsibility to ensure that people learn and understand that and are set up for success.
It's great to hear that actually from the representative from the multi-state operators, just because, like I said, you have a multi-billion-dollar industry. You're going to need to lobby those that are in our elected positions and enlighten them about this industry, right? I mean, it doesn't, it's not just like, hey, we're going to make it legal. Everybody's going to, no, it needs to be controlled. No one in the industry is saying it doesn't need to be controlled, but you have to also allow the small operator and the large operator to succeed. And it's the safe banking thing alone is driving everybody crazy. I'm going to guess you might have some insight. Is this thing going to pass finally or what?
I love not having banking. That's sarcasm for
Yes.
everybody out
Yeah,
there.
thank you.
And so, no, I look, I think we've come to a very interesting apex in cannabis. We've gotten over the hump of, is this Republican versus Democrat? We all know that it works for both sides from a social justice perspective, but also job creation, infrastructure spend, taxes. I mean, all those things are a big plus for Republicans. And so, this has now turned into an old guard versus a new guard. And so eventually over time, whether that happens in 3 months or 6 months or who knows when, it's going to change. But in order for, the industry that, we all participate in now to succeed, and it's really sad because, we just talked about social equity and the small businesses and making that work. I can survive without safe banking. As a small business owner of where I came from, I know the challenges of that, and they can't survive. That's the disservice that the folks in Washington are missing the point on. And so they want to do all these very good things, but the basic need of an economy, of our economy, cannabis I'm talking about specifically, is finance. It is a very, very, very capital intensive business. And so without that opportunity for small mom and pops or social equity folks, or you name it, they're gone. They're done. I said that back in December when safe banking, didn't get into omnibus and didn't get into the defense spending. They were gone. And we're struggling too, but we will survive. I have access to capital. Nobody else does. And so I think that's the point that a lot of people miss on safe banking.
I know. I'm not missing it because I get it a little bit anyway. At least I think I do.
Politicians are missing.
Politicians, yes, some of my favorite people. Not happening. Sorry, people know that. Trent Woloveck from Jushi, thank you so much for joining us. I know you had 10 minutes. I appreciate you sitting with us. And it's important, the message you're sharing, it is important that we share it with our audience too. I know.
Appreciate your time, and thank you for all the work that you've done to help normalize cannabis.
That's what we're trying to do here at Pro Cannabis Media. All right. Hey, you know what? I want to take a quick break, Dan. I'm going to let you know that because I'm going to try and handpick somebody that is out here to follow Trent in the interview spot. So
Good luck.
well, a tough act to follow. Is that where you're going to? I get that. I doubt I'll have any more multi-state operators sitting next to me. I just want to say, let's take a quick break, Dan, and then come back.
You would think that it is. However, there's quite a bit of debate right now in the accounting industry when it relates to cannabis with this exact question. I'm part of a few different networking groups that are solely accountants for cannabis companies. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth in those communities and discussion regarding whether 280E, if it went away, if the administration legalized cannabis or took it off of Schedule 1, what would happen? And it could go either way right now. The debate is it can make the accountant's life much easier. That's what a lot of the inexperienced accountants are saying right now, it seems. Whereas the accountants that have been in this industry for a while and have gone through the same thing that happened with hemp a few years ago are saying that it actually will make lives more difficult, because when hemp became declassified a while back, the accounting became more complicated.
Well, we are back again here on a Thursday afternoon live from the floor of the CWCB Expo at the Javits Center in New York City. I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media. So happy to bring you all these interviews for you to kind of enlighten our audience about the depth of this industry, what is happening in this industry right now, and how things might have to change to actually keep this industry around. Now, joining me here at the interview desk is Travis Goad. Now, Travis, here's the thing with this little box set we have. You have to talk into the direction of this microphone. It's a directional microphone. So I'm going to keep doing this to you.
Okay.
Okay. You comfortable with that? Yeah. All right. I might even knock the table over for a comedic effect. All right. Travis, tell me a little bit about, I know the PR company that you're working with. I love them. But tell us a little bit about what your company does and where you're at.
So yeah, we're Pelorus Capital Group. We're the longest running cannabis focused real estate lender in the sector. We closed our first cannabis transaction in 2016. We've done about 500 million in origination since inception. The vast majority of which is funded completely on our balance sheet, which is a differentiating factor for us. We today have about 370 million in AUM. We are the first cannabis debt fund to ever issue a corporate bond. We are investment grade rated, which was just upgraded to single A, which is a first for the industry. We were the first to get an FDIC line of credit and do a mix of construction and stabilized loans in legal markets.
That was a mouthful, and I actually knew a lot of that, but it's amazing how successful you guys have been in the money space, in the capital space, compared to the cry of the entire industry. Nobody has access to capital, right?
Correct. And that's, it's even been exacerbated with what's going on in the broader capital markets, with interest rates rising and volatility in traditional asset classes. So we've been very successful in raising capital, and we continue to do that and continue to deploy capital even in this environment.
And now let me ask you a question about Rob Seacrest, because he works with you, right? I mean, we went through this, right?
Yeah, Rob Seacrest is the founding partner, along with our third partner, Dan. And he's excellent. He leads up our capital raising, and as you can tell, is very successful.
And he's already appeared on In the Weeds with Jimmy Young, which is kind of a coincidence more than anything else. But it tells you that the people you're working with that are getting you guys in front of the right people. And I'll take a look credit here, because I'm pretty proud of what we built here. You hear doom and gloom. You hear nobody's making money. You hear we don't have access to capital. How is that going to change in the current environment? Let's just hope that, say, banking passes and it kind of eases some of that. But my point is, what is the future look like for this industry? Is it going to survive no matter what?
Yeah, this industry is going to survive no matter what. I have zero concerns about that. What we really have seen is at the beginning of an industry, you don't have to be efficient to make money. When these states first come online, there's way more demand than supply. And as the markets normalize and mature, supply catches up with demand. And then the next stage is you have to be efficient on the expense side. And what we've seen is that the people in our book, even in highly competitive markets in California and other markets, the ones that are outperforming are the ones that have paid attention to that expense line item first and really made a move there. And yes, it will survive. But no industry's ever really had to grow with this one. They have a massive tailwind for an industry, but it's also headwinds as far as 280E, tax issues, regulatory overlay. So there's been it's been a unique rollout for cannabis.
Making money with money is still one of those things that I just don't understand because I just haven't, people know my story. That being said, is there a formula? Is there a template perhaps that you guys use that has allowed you to succeed as much as you have?
Yeah.
Besides good people.
Thank you for that. We have great people, first of all, and that's a core. But it's really just being conservative in a new market. Certain lenders that entered the space with a different lending model than us, much more of a corporate-based lending model, which is just a little farther out the risk spectrum. And so what we would do is lend on an actual hard asset. We lend between 60 and 75% of the value of that hard asset, which keeps us in a more protected position in a new industry that's still very volatile and finding its footing. And so, we've been successful in raising capital because we delivered strong returns to our investors, between 12 and 15% every single year since full operation. And we have about 5 years of audited financials. So the key is finding, delivering good returns to investors.
Well, we all want those returns. That much I understand. Okay. That much I understand. But, until we build this thing out to the major network that I know it has the upside to become, I'm still one of those small businesses. You know what I mean? I'm still a me, myself, and I, and Dan. I never forget Dan, because if it wasn't for Dan, we wouldn't be on right now. Let's just say he's back there in Massachusetts and pushing all the right buttons and everything. And I'm sure he wants to mute me more than he's allowed to or can, but that's a completely different story for another day. Let's talk about foreign markets, because to me, what the United States is going through, Canada went through, what the United States is going through, every country now has some kind of a movement for cannabis advocacy. Not a lot have pulled the trigger yet. So is the growth bigger in the United States or in markets like Europe and Asia? How's that for a question for you?
Sure. I think the growth in the U.S. is going to be one of the biggest markets for cannabis, period. But Europe is earlier in its life cycle. So I think it's where the U.S. was maybe in 2014. So it's very early stages, but we think that'll also be a gigantic market. I mean, to give you an idea, California has about 35 million people in the state. It's the largest legal market. But if Germany were to go legal, which they've talked about going recreational legal, it's, again, early stages. It's not fully there yet. If that were to happen, that's over 80 million people in Germany alone. And if you look at just the countries that touch Germany, and we see that in the U.S., is when a state goes legal and it's still illegal in other states, people cross over and buy. So you pick up some of that. Europe is going to be an absolutely massive market, and we're excited about it. We've looked at deals in Europe, and we definitely think there's expansion opportunities there. It's just a little early.
Where is the stigma more entrenched, in Europe or the United States?
That's a fair question. I don't know if there's a massive difference of stigma entrenchment. When I go to Europe, I have friends that live in Europe. I haven't noticed that the culturally there's a much more of a stigma than the U.S. I'd say, at least in my experience, has been fairly comparable.
Well, I really, Trent, Travis, thank you so much. I know I only want to do 10 minutes with you. I probably could talk with you for a long time, but please say hello to Rob from Jimmy Young. I think he'll remember me. I don't know. People remember me. I do see a very special person in eyesight. Are you familiar with Arcview at all?
Yeah, I am familiar with Arcview.
Do you know their CEO, Jeff Finkle?
We may have met before. I don't know him that well.
Well, he's right there. He's talking to Dr. Mary, and he and I grew up together. So it's kind of funny that we're in the same business, because he gives me credit. In 1973, we were camp counselors at a Y camp in the Massachusetts area, and I turned him on to the Allman Brothers. Okay, and if that's how I can be remembered, I am really happy about that. Hey, Travis, thank you again. Appreciate it. And say hi. All right, we're going to, Dan, make this a quick one. I do see Jeff. I think he's going to come over here, and we will talk. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more. Don't forget your credential. We'll be back with more after this. Okay.
You would think that it is. However, there's quite a bit of debate right now in the accounting industry when it relates to cannabis with this exact question. I'm part of a few different networking groups that are solely accountants for cannabis companies. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth in those communities and discussion regarding whether 280E, if it went away, if the administration legalized cannabis or took it off of Schedule 1, what would happen? And it could go either way right now. The debate is it can make the accountant's life much easier. That's what a lot of the inexperienced accountants are saying right now, it seems. Whereas the accountants that have been in this industry for a while and have gone through the same thing that happened with hemp a few years ago are saying that will make lives more difficult, because when hemp became declassified a while back, the accounting became more complicated.
And welcome back to the floor of the CWCB Expo here in New York at the Javits Center. And I've talked already about the people that I recognize immediately, and some who actually have recognized me immediately and want to come over and say hello. And it's been great. It's been kind of nonstop. So it's been fun for me, certainly, but especially when I run into the gentleman that is sitting next to me right now, because we grew up together. And if anybody has friends that you've been friends with people for 50 years, that kind of dates us, Jeff. I have to put the mic. This is a directional mic. Do you feel like you've known me for 50 years?
All I remember is that you could hit a baseball a lot farther than I could, but I think I could swim faster than you.
No doubt. I hate swimming, but I like that. Actually, the fact that you remember I could hit. I told the guy I was just talking to that the way you introduced me is flattering to me. It has nothing to do with the accolades of the network. It's the fact that I turned you on to the Allman Brothers in 1973.
It's a true statement. It's a true statement. You were my musical renaissance.
Wow. I gotta adjust this a little bit here. Here we go. All right. You know, it's we're in the field. We're in the field and we're learning by doing. Jeff is the CEO of Arcview, one of the oldest and largest, if not the oldest and largest investment fund that's out there. He's based in New York City. Jeff, has it been amazing to watch what's been going on in your backyard over the last, I don't even know when the last time I saw you in the fall. So 8 months ago?
Well, look, the attention to New York is insane, as you can see. Certainly the rollout has not been on pace with the interest for a lot of reasons, but I think look, very easy to sit here and criticize the OCM and the regulatory bodies in the state.
That's why they're created. That's what they're
You know what? It's hard, but they're well-meaning and they're principled and they're really trying to do it right. I don't agree with a lot of policy, but they're trying to do it right. It's not easy. It's not easy.
And to be honest, no state really has gotten it right so that other states can replicate it. They actually have to learn by doing and asking people in the industry, asking other regulators in other states. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. And everybody, I agree with you, is trying to get it right. But Jeff, between the banking issues, between the capital, between the applications for social equity applicants that get to go to the front of the line, I mean, there's so many moving parts in this industry, economically, sociologically, chemistry, scientifically. It's overwhelming how deep this industry has become in just a short period of time.
It's deeply nuanced, for sure. And as I said, OCM, when you're drafting regs, you've got a lot of considerations, a lot of different interest groups to please. Look, I would say, again, philosophically, what they're trying to do is the right thing to do. Be social equity focused, be an industry of small providers to keep big canna, away and not giving them the ability to dominate. But I would say to you, in doing that, in the protective provisions in the regs, sometimes the pendulum swings too far. And sometimes you break the very thing that you're trying to help. And I think there's evidence of that here. But again, it's not an easy Rubik's Cube to solve here.
No, it is not. And I'm going to give myself a shameless plug again. I am teaching a course on getting to normalization with Stockton University here in New Jersey, or in the New Jersey area, tri-state area, wherever. New York is the center of the universe. I get it. Okay. I mean, I'm from Boston. It takes a lot for me to actually understand, admit that, but it's true. Tell me a little bit about what Arcview is up to. I know you guys have run a couple of very successful investment forums, and you've been in Miami, you've been in the West Coast, you've been in New York. What's on the calendar for Arcview over the next few months?
So I'll give a full overview, but let me just ask you at the outset. You attended our New York Investor Conference.
Yeah.
How was it? Did you enjoy it?
I liked the investor conference. I would love it if there was a way to tell you that, oh yeah, and I met my funder there and they're doing great. No, that didn't happen, but I met a couple of people that I'm doing business with, which, as you know, is what these things really are about.
Good. Great. All right. So quick overview of Arcview. All right. Let me sort of frame that from what we were to what we become. Yep. So founded in 2010 by Troy Dayton and Steve D'Angelo, right? Through the lens of advocacy with the notion of freeing the plant. And I think they quickly realized in order to do that, they had to sort of nurture the economic growth of the industry, right? So how do you do that? Well, this is what they did. They started forums where investors could meet aspiring companies, right? Those forums grew from 20 people around a conference room table to 500, 600 person events 5 times a year. But the business model was that as an event producer and an investor network. Accredited investors would pay a fee to come to events and see companies. And that's essentially what Arcview was through 2019. Any questions?
Not yet. Keep going.
All right. 2019, Entourage Effect Capital, one of the leading growth capital funds in the industry, came in, took a dominant position in Arcview with the idea that we should take this great brand, this brand that facilitated over $350 million of investment in over 200 companies, but participate at the transaction level. So we started a broker dealer to be able to have companies, get a fee on bringing investors and companies together for financing. We started a principal investing group called Arcview Ventures. We have a fund that we invest out of. And then we started a consulting company called Arcview Management Consulting. So that now, in addition to sort of our core event and bringing people together and facilitating, we're making money at the transaction level. So all of those businesses are at varying degrees of maturity and scale, but that's what we're doing. We're really trying to nurture really 4 different business units if you add sort of the core event business, and that's what we're focused on.
When's the next one in New York? Do you know? You can probably share that with me.
So we haven't planned it, but what I will tell you, and we have not said this publicly yet,
But you are now.
we've reached an agreement in principle to partner with Lyft. So Lyft was the Canadian MJ Biz, right?
Right. Okay.
So in fact, the Lyft Toronto conference is going on right now in Toronto. My partner, Gene Sullivan, is speaking on stage there. I love it, right?
Yep.
They do Vancouver, they do Toronto, and they most recently acquired the NCIA show in California, which is now going to be called Lyft US. So we are doing a deal with Lyft where we're going to have the Arcview Investor Summit be a 1-day track or conference at Lyft San Francisco, August 2nd through August 4th. I think our day will be the 3rd. So we're going to be part of a broader conference, expecting over 3,500 people to come. And we're going to be part of that conference and leverage all the infrastructure of Lyft.
I'm so glad they have a CEO who can, deal with all this stuff, because it sounds like you have a very busy week, every month. I mean, you're nonstop. And as you look back at your journey in turning Arcview, actually, let me rephrase that, turning it back on. Is that accurate? Good way to describe it?
I think to some degree, post-COVID, we turned it back on.
Yeah.
But I would say the way I would phrase it is an effort to proliferate the brand.
Okay.
That's sort of what we're trying to accomplish.
All right. Well, we're big with the branding here too. You know what's going on in this industry right now. There's a ton of doom and gloom predictions out there. there's, you hear the access to capital is drying up, and okay. So, oh, great. Somebody's sending me photos in the middle of the show. I'm like, really? Really? Okay. Thank you so much. Good ones. I don't know. I'm not going to open them because I'm focused on talking to my friend Jeff here. Is it really doom and gloom? Is there still investment funding available? Has it changed as far as the structure of the deal right now? That perhaps is a really good question. Perhaps.
So I would say two things. Certainly the supply and demand for investment capital are way out of balance. There's definitely not enough money, but let's not say there's no money. And look, Jimmy, you were there in New York. We put 15 VC funds on stage in a reverse pitch. We had them tell the audience the name of the fund, total assets under management, the average check size, the subsectors they focus on, and what they value in entrepreneurs. They introduced themselves to the audience. So people coming away from that session at our conference got the sense that, yes, capital out. There's not a lot. It's not easy to get. And the terms are not traditional, but there is capital out there.
If you were structuring a new deal for a new company, an imaginary company, okay, and they had an offer on the table for a seed round, what can you define, or is there a definition of what a seed round? We know when it is. The question is, how big does it have to be, or is there an industry standard, I guess?
So the terms are sometimes used interchangeably, but I'll tell you the way that I think about it. Okay. Let's say we're a tech software company servicing the cannabis industry. We're not a grower. So you and I have the idea today, we're going to start this business. You're a coder, you code at night. Do you code? Okay. So we'll say hypothetically.
Unless I could take out my inner underdog, okay, and find my little code thing that he used to have. Sorry.
All right. So you code at night, hypothetically. I know the customer space. Like I know the needs and requirements for the customer. So we have this idea, it's you and me. All right. We're both working day jobs and we need to get going. So to me, that's pre-seed. That's discovery. So maybe you and I each pitch in 20 grand and we start to do a little bit of work. Maybe you hire a sub-programmer. I go out and do some interviews with customers. And from there, we get data. Now, when that data suggests that this could be a business, then we go out and raise what I call a seed round. And the goal of the seed round is to take that early data and our work and build an MVP, a minimally viable product. Okay? Just to get something out there. Yeah. And with that, we're going to learn things like, what will people pay for it? Like, what's the closing sales cycle? Like all those things. That's what we do with seed money, right? Then from there, once we turn that seed money into sort of positive data, and we actually have a little bit of a business, then we go out and raise our Series X. Right. So we'll call it early growth round to sort of move forward and operationalize all that we've done. So that's my view. That's how I cut it down. And I have a more rigid definition than most, but that's the way to think about it.
No, and I appreciate it because you've enlightened me so much on so many things when it comes to this world of finance and capital and all this. Is there a signal of a business that they should look for when it's like, okay, we're ready, we've gone through our seed round? Is there a signal? Let's do an A round. How do you know when the next step? Is there a revenue thing? I mean, tell me, how do you know it? Okay, we've gone through our seed round. Now it's time for the A round.
So if the goal of the seed round is to develop the MVP, get it out there and get data from it, it's what the data tells us, right? Now, that could be a lot of different things. It could be people will pay between $10,000 and $15,000 a year, and you can close these deals in 3 months. So sales cycle, amount, distribution is clear. There's enough things that say, it's kind of like when you played Monopoly. It's just about when you want to put your house on Boardwalk and Park Place, right? Just about when the other guy's coming around, when he's ready to roll the dice and you're within 6 steps away, he might land there. That's when you invest. So the 6 steps away is akin to sort of all these data points that suggest that with now early growth capital, this will actually be a business.
Well, as usual, we have great insight, great guests, and Jeff, we're friends, and
now you gotta teach me how to hit lefty.
I can teach you. Oh, I could teach anybody anything when it comes to sports. It's the financial world that I have no clue on, and getting to normalization. Through public relations, fighting the stigma is a perfect name of a course for me, and I'm really looking forward to it. And again, I know I'm stumping here a lot for this course, but they just announced it like a week ago, and we'll do it if we have 10 people. I'm like 10. I did create a video, but now, of course, it's a university, so all the lawyers have to check it out to make sure I say all the right things, because
Might not.
you bet. And I have in the past, so they know my reputation. Anyway, Jeff, any plugs you want to give to what's coming up next for Arcview, or a recent investment of yours that you saw that too, that you might want to give a plug to, something you're really excited about?
Yeah, well, we're about to fund a deal that's deep in the CBN space, the minor cannabinoid space.
Love CBN.
For
Every
sleep,
night.
they've got a sleep study, a deep first one, real sleep study, and that we're also going to go the pharma route in that company, because there's implications beyond the CBN that they've uncovered. So there's a drug discovery piece, and then just an ingredient provider piece to that business. But if I was going to plug anything, we're going to be doing a webinar. And if you want to reach out to me, I'll get you the dates. I think it's the 16th of June. It's going to be a regulatory update to see what's going on, as there's been a lot of sort of momentum in Washington, and get a real sense from Michael Correa from
I love
the NCIA. Yeah,
Oh my
Mike's the regulatory guy, and
He never met a microphone he didn't like, Jeff.
but he has got something to say, so that makes it okay.
That's why I love him. I love
So
him for that.
We're going to sponsor a webinar and get a real update to our audience, and so that's the thing I would plug.
Terrific. All right. Hey, Jeff Finkle from Arcview. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it.
pleasure.
Always. I
Always
can't,
good to see you.
it's good to see you too. We'll get caught up off air, as they say, and I can share what's going on. All right. But now I don't know if Jill's going to join me or not. Is Jill going to join me, or is your friend going to join me? Because I'm not, both of you together, that could be trouble.
All right, Jimmy.
Wait. Hang on. We have Brandon Jones in our waiting room from Missouri. So I'm doing something I normally do, but we want to get Brandon in. Let me talk to Brandon for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll bring you guys in. Is that fair enough? So come back in 5 or 10 minutes. All right, there you go. Because I know, after all, Jill is one of our correspondents on We Talk News, and she absolutely should be on with us at some point. So let's get Brandon Jones on the phone here. Jeff, thank you again.
Jimmy, thank you.
All right, man. And we'll talk about what is going on in Missouri, because if there's anybody who knows anything going on in Missouri, it is Brandon. And there he almost is. Let's see if we can get him punched up. And it looks like oh, great. He's driving. Are you driving, Brandon?
Well, I was pulled over, and then our production person said you'd be off in 3 minutes. And then what do you know? Jimmy started talking.
Don't throw the production people and the technical people under the bus, Brandon, because you'll never, ever be on camera again with noise, with audio.
I was actually throwing you under the bus, Jimmy. I was saying you talked longer than you told Dan. So,
yes, you can throw me under the bus anytime you want. Okay, how's that? You happy now? Anyway, let's go and tell us what's going on in Missouri, because there was a pretty big story this week in Missouri. Because I know I sent you a link to one of the stories. What's going on in Missouri?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is supply chain issues. I don't know. I'm traveling right now to Imperius in Oklahoma City. So I honestly, I don't know which article you're talking about. I know.
Oh God, I could have brought that
but
up.
if you tell me which article you're talking about, then I could probably tell you what I know about it.
Well, tell me something that you don't know, and then and keep talking for a little bit so I can actually find where that article is, because I think I might be able to snag it relatively quickly, because everybody knows I'm so challenged with technology. So tell me what's going. Go ahead.
So yeah, like I said, right now headed to Imperius in Oklahoma City, but Missouri's been just booming and taking off with rec sales happening 4 months ago. So seeing a lot of supply chain issues is the worst thing associated with it. That leads to higher costs for patients. Luckily, there's some of the dispensaries that did kind of bulk and purchase, but they still after 4 months supplies and costs are rising here in the state for everyone.
Okay, so new rules stir fear amongst Black Missourians who will once again perhaps lose out in marijuana licensing. What is going on with the social equity applicants, the legacy applicants in Missouri? And do you think that they're doing a good enough job at getting opportunities to that group of people?
They're definitely failing at giving opportunities to those type of people. I'm very lucky. One of my positions is with Missouri Wellness, and our owner is Tanisha Patterson. She is a Black woman owner, and her mother was actually a veteran as well. So I'm lucky to be with only one of the two manufacturers that works in the state to try to, help with the social equity brand as much as I can, as far as that goes. But yeah, they're definitely failing as far as getting those people approved. We saw the first round that we had multiple applicants that had the exact same criteria, but yet some were approved and some were denied. And what do you know? It was found to be, well, that's where the money was, and obviously did not follow the criteria that they had actually set to make sure that those social equity brands were able to access those licenses. And then now the next thing is they're talking about also changing the micro license opportunities that are supposed to be happening on the next round. And so that's what the fear is now. Not only the regular license, but now the micro licenses are also going to be changing the criteria for how those were able to be approved.
Right. And again, I really think some states are trying to do, like New York is trying to do it the right way, and they're failing miserably. But every state that thinks they're going to do it the right way ends up learning by doing and then adapting. And I think that's what's going on here in Missouri again. But, they need to keep their voices being heard by those local politicians. It's really, really important. A lot of people think no one's going to care. No one's going to. Yes, they care. And more importantly, get on the phone, send the emails, do the grassroots efforts, if you will, pardon the pun. But that's the kind of thing that needs to get done at the state level in order to rectify some of the situations that are out there in different states. I hope that happens in your state.
Yeah, and we're lucky with a politician like Mayor Quentin Lucas here, the mayor of Kansas City, is a forward thinker. He changed all the city employees are not tested for cannabis anymore. And then the entire city of Kansas City is decriminalized, whether you're in Kansas or in Missouri. So that is a great step forward that, we have had some politicians backing, that we're very, very grateful for their support. But, still me driving to Oklahoma, I make sure I drive an hour longer to go through Joplin and not go through Kansas in any way, going from Missouri to Oklahoma.
And that's because you actually have legal cannabis in your car?
I might have remnants of legal cannabis in my car, and I don't want to be put in jail for remnants. Or if you lose, like I have a one hitter. If my one hitter got dropped in between the car seat and I didn't remember, and I get pulled over, I don't know. And my nose is used to smelling cannabis, so if I walk in my car, it probably smells like cannabis from being in Missouri. But I just don't take the chance. I'm paranoid. No reason. I'll add an hour and do some business and talk to some clients on the way.
Absolutely. And getting some high signs for people. I will tell you, there's one problem of being in New York, Brandon. It's the amount of New York Yankee hats that I see. It's very upsetting to me, but I accept it. I understand. And the Red Sox have won more World Series in the 21st century than the Yankees have, so I can live with that. Back to cannabis
I have both
again.
hats at my house.
That's right. That's right.
I have both the Yankees hat and a Boston's hat, Boston Red Sox hat. So.
And by the way, and you're in Missouri, all right? Now I know you didn't
I'm
grow
a
up in
baseball
Missouri.
guy. What can you say?
And right, you didn't grow up in Missouri, though, did you?
Yeah, Kansas City area. I'm a suburb kid.
All right. But you support the Chiefs and the Royals or not?
Yes, both.
Uh-oh, I'm putting you on the spot.
And then this is my hat rack, just to give you an idea.
Okay.
So this is just a hat rack for 3 days in my car.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
1, 2, 3, 4, 7 hats. So yeah, I'm a hat guy.
Yeah, no, well,
7 hats for 4 days. You never know.
My regular. No. What you don't know is every work day, an entrepreneur has to wear many of those hats, right? You have
Yeah.
you have the sales hat, you have the management hat, you have the production hat, you have the on-camera hat, you have it, all those different elements to keeping your business, your vision alive. That's what it's all about, and that's what we're all trying to do here. That's great. Hey, Brandon, tell me, how is my pal Evan Baker doing with Baker Brands?
Evan is awesome. I'm actually going to see him next weekend in Detroit for Spark in the Park with Method Man and Be Real and all those fun people in Detroit. So I'm excited to meet up with Evan and a couple of my other friends. I know the Dab Stars. Nick is another Missouri guy that will be both out in Detroit next weekend trying to show the Missouri people can hang too.
That's right. And now, do you want me to introduce you to the executive director of Michigan, Rick Thompson, who happens to do our Michigan report every week on the news, or not?
Of course. I mean,
that help you?
I do have his email, and I have said hello a few times.
Good.
But yeah, I should call Rick.
Just saying, you're going to be in the hood. You're going to be in the same state. You might as well take advantage of any connections you have, and especially in the cannabis space, because Rick knows everybody in that state that's in the cannabis world, you know. And I'm still waiting for my the next interview to show up here, Brandon. So we might have to fill for a few more minutes.
Okay. Hey man,
I
I'm
have
here
to fill
driving
for a
to
few
Oklahoma
minutes.
City, so I can talk.
I think it's amazing the story you've told me in the past about the line of Missouri and Kansas through Kansas City, right?
Yeah, state
Explain
line
the
runs
differences.
directly. Yeah, so state line runs right in the middle of Kansas City. You can be, on one side of the street, and the bars stay open till 3, and you can have cannabis, but you can't gamble on the baseball game. You cross the street, the bar closes at 2. It doesn't sell beer on Sunday. You can't have remnants of cannabis, not a joint, just a piece of resin left in a pipe, and it's 30 days minimum sentence. And like I said, Mayor Quentin Lucas did allow the city of Kansas City, but if you're outside the city limits, which most people don't know where the actual city limit line is, you are now breaking the law. And I think I told this story. I had a 67-year-old friend who is an advocate for cannabis. She lives only 2 blocks from state line. She decided to go to the grocery store in Kansas instead of Missouri. Her taillight was out. She didn't think about it. The officer pulled her over, and I don't know how, but he found half a joint in her car underneath her cup holder and took her to jail and made her bond herself out. She's 60-something years old, and it was this small of a joint that she said she didn't remember how old it was. So that's why I don't drive to Kansas.
I don't blame you. And that's a telling story. And there's so many stories like that, by the way, that are out there. It pains me. And if they would just take it off Schedule 1, it's a Department of Justice administrative thing that they can do. They can just change the classification. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, we want to hit the home run. We want to get it all. We want to get legalization. How about one little win? How about opening the banks, okay, first, and then looking at all the nonviolent criminals that are still in jail for cannabis, perhaps create a workforce development program for them to come out and either get into the industry if they'd like, or just to get back into society. This is the only way we're going to be a progressive, modern country. We can't keep going backwards and backwards and backwards. We have to think about how we've screwed up a lot of people's lives and our world and change it with just basic due diligence, as they say. I don't know. I get frustrated.
I think there's over 7,500. Yeah, no, I think there's already 7,500 expungements here in the state of Missouri. Don't quote me on that number, but there has been a lot of expungements. And then I know you're familiar with Anthony and 40 Tons and what they do, the cannabis hiring fairs for those that were incarcerated for cannabis crimes. They go all around the country. I think they're going to be in Chicago actually very soon. And working with those guys and those brand. Anthony is amazing, and Corvain Cooper and their brand, what they do. His wife behind the scenes kicks butt too. So yeah, I love what 40 Tons, just exactly what you described is actually what they do.
Well, we should be doing so. I'm on their newsletter list. I can tell you that. Okay. Cause I look at that every time I don't know if it's every day or every week, but I definitely look at their newsletter.
Well, let me
Hey,
know. I
Brandon,
can
just so
hook
you
up
know,
with
next
Anthony.
week, we're going to go back.
Okay.
Hook me up with Anthony. Okay. How's that? Just do an email entree and,
Yep.
he and I will talk and we'll see where we go from there. But just again, a reminder, because I'm still the producer of that We Talk News show. That you threw me under the bus for. No, we're going back to our regular schedule next Thursday. So we'll have a regular edition of We Talk News. I have to check with Elena because I think she may be off, which means I have to do it again, which is okay. I know how to do it. I do it. It just changes my day a little bit. It is what it is. I don't see my next interview.
I will be live at Imperious tomorrow during the show tomorrow if you're doing anything then. I talked to Evan about. I will be at Imperious in Oklahoma City.
In Oklahoma City. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, well,
yeah.
you know what? We're going to be doing a Green Rush-ish show. We're going to basically doing a 3 to 5 edition of Green Rush instead of 4 to 6. And since we don't
Okay.
really have a news, maybe Dan will end up rerunning this again after it. It's kind of like a news show. I haven't even now that you've reminded me of all this, I now can actually call up my news and go through it a little bit. So I feel like I can fill some time by giving some information out to people. We kind of started with the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz signing the legalization bill in Minnesota. So there's now
Don't you know?
23 legal states. It's pretty cool. I'm amazed that I've seen all this happening in so many ways. Anyway, hey, Brandon, I'll talk to you next week. My voice, I can tell my voice is starting to fade. So I'm going to toss it back to Dan. He and I will discuss what to do next and see if that gives more time for Jill to come back with her interview partner, who, by the way, has one of the biggest sets of hair I've ever seen. So if you want to see that, stay tuned. We're going to have a couple of breaks, but we'll come back and wrap this thing up before the top of the hour. Don't go away. Our special edition of We Talk News live from the CWCB Expo continues after this.
Thanks, Jimmy.
You would think that it is. However, there's quite a bit of debate right now in the accounting industry when it relates to cannabis with this exact question. I'm part of a few different networking groups that are solely accountants for cannabis companies. And there's been quite a bit of back and forth in those communities and discussion regarding whether 280E, if it went away, if the administration legalized cannabis or took it off of Schedule 1, what would happen? And it could go either way right now. The debate is it can make the accountant's life much easier. That's what a lot of the inexperienced accountants are saying right now, it seems. Whereas the accountants that have been in this industry for a while and have gone through the same thing that happened with hemp a few years ago are saying that it actually will make lives more difficult because when hemp became declassified a while back, the accounting became more complicated.
Safetiva Labs in Westfield is fast becoming the #1 testing lab for cannabis in Western Massachusetts. Safetiva understands the importance for accurate on-time test results for your product. That's why their current compliance panel turnaround time is less than 2 days. That's Safetiva Labs in Westfield. For more information, go to safetiva.com.
It's a whole new world of weed out there, isn't it? Everyone is learning new ways to titrate, ingest, consume, imbibe, and engage with this plant medicine we call cannabis. Hi, I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and the host of In the Weeds, and once in a while, the really live business cannabis talk show we call Green Rush on Friday afternoons from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern. I've been a medical patient in Massachusetts for almost 10 years now. I remember my first trip to a dispensary just outside of Boston, and I told the bud tender I didn't want to smoke it anymore. So I tried edibles, then tinctures, then vaping, and now if I'm going to smoke, I only use the Weejits filtration system. What? The Weejits.com, Weejits, that's weed, W-E-E-D, G-E-T-S.com, is where you'll find the planet's coolest product.
Both cool the smoke from 1300 degrees to just 90 into your lungs. Plus, the maze pipe and pre-roll filters get rid of all the gunk that you just don't want in your lungs if you can help it.
Add in the code of PCMTV and you get 15% off. So just go to Weejits.com and check out the best way to enjoy a cooler smoke with less coughing and hacking and more peace of mind. All that resin and tar is collected in the polyurethane filters that are easy to clean with soap, water, and a few Q-tips. Your lungs will thank you, and so will I.
We are a cultivation through to consumption lifestyle brand for the cannabis industry. Of course, the crown jewel in our product line is the Armoire home grow system. So now with Green Goddess Supply, we can take you everywhere from growing it in the Armoire right through to storing it, consuming it, rolling it, storing it, you name it, A to Z. Our goal is to enable everybody and anybody anywhere to be able to produce their own organic flower quickly, easily, discreetly, and inexpensively.